Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Google Hangout. I am Veena Kanke, Director of Grants and Partnerships at Dining for Women. And with me, I have Amy, you may not see, who is our technical support, and she's helping me run this Google Hangout. And I also have Katie J. Hi, Katie J.
Hi.
Katie J. Scott is the Chief Operating Officer of iACT. iACT was founded in the year 2005. It is an international organization that focuses on humanitarian aid to regions and countries that have experienced mass atrocities. So Katie J., why don't you share the project that Dining for Women is going to fund with us?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Veena, for the introduction. I'm very excited to be with all of the Dining for Women ladies across the U.S. So as Veena mentioned, iACT is an international aid organization, and we provide humanitarian action to aid, empower, and extend hope to communities and individuals affected by mass atrocities. And one of our programs is Little Ripples. Little Ripples is a preschool education and early childhood development program. It's co-created and refugee-led, and it cultivates children's potential through play-based learning. The key elements of the program are that it's scalable, it's durable, and it's cost-effective. When we first started the program, we built the school, the 4 walls, and it was very expensive. And at the same time, there was a ballooning of refugee populations around the world. As many of you know, there's over 60 million refugees, displaced people around the world. 50% of those are children under the age of 18. And so as that number increases, there's less humanitarian funding available for refugee situations like Eastern Chad. It's been there for over 10 years. So after we built this amazing school, which is beautiful, the United Nations and other humanitarian aid organizations said, you're just not going to be able to build schools anymore. There's no funding for it. And so we moved it to in-home centers hosted by refugee women who also provide the daily meal at the preschool program. And it's now a more scalable, it's more durable, and it's definitely a more cost-effective program. All of the Dining for Women ladies, all of your funding is going to go to 3 main things. It's going to provide funding for the Lead with Empathy training program, which is an iACT leadership curriculum. And the main focus of the program are teaching the women empathy, leadership skills and facilitation, learning about their human rights as women, as people, and that children have rights as well. How to apply the human rights in their current context in the refugee camps. And it also teaches them the foundation of nonviolent communication and peace building. It actually culminates with an action project, which is one of the things I'm most excited about. You're also providing funding for 19 Little Ripples teachers and 2 education directors. So the funding and the leadership training, the Lead with Empathy training program, it's not just about providing salaries, but those salaries translate into decision-making power and voice within the refugee camp context. So we're very grateful for the support of Dining for Women. And I just wanted to share with you, I got a video 2 days ago from one of our Little Ripples teachers. Her name is Zainab, and she told our Director of International Programs, Sarah Christine, that she was able to use the funding from her salary to make a decision on where she wanted to spend that money. She went to her husband and proposed that she take English classes in the camp that are available from other people that know English. And so for the last 6 months, to our surprise, Zainab has been learning English. And so this is a quick interview with Zainab that I will share with you. Let me just get to it really quick. There's a series of steps I have to get to. So here we go. And this is Zainab, one of our Little Ripples teachers who you will be providing the salary for.
My name is Zainab Osmani. So I live in Gosama, I'm in Block 6. I'm a teacher in Little Labour Institute. Why I be a teacher? Because education is very important to the life. Nothing important than education in our life. So because I need to, the children, if I educate themselves, they enjoy in a good life with their future. Yeah, and hope also now I don't speak English well, but I hope to speak English more than this. Even I want to visit the USA and I want to visit the Europe, but for unfortunately in the African country, traditionally the girl is not free to enjoy in all countries. So this is unfortunately what. No, thank you.
So Zainab was just sharing with you that she is a Little Ripples teacher and that she is taking English classes in her refugee camp. It's Refugee Camp Gozamer in Eastern Chad. And she was speaking to the fact that the education is very important for the Darfuri community. Even, you know, when iACT started going to the refugee camps in 2005, we would ask the women, you know, what do you need? And it was visibly apparent that they needed housing, they needed food, they needed clothes for their girls, for themselves, and for the little boys as well. And they would always say education, education, education. Zainab was also speaking to the lack of agency and voice that the women have. She mentioned that unfortunately it's difficult for women to travel, not just because of their refugee status, but because they do tend to have to follow traditionally the male in the household, their husband or their father. So that was just a little bit of an overview of our Little Ripples program. And you heard the voice of Zainab, one of our Little Ripples teachers. And I'm more than willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, KDJ, for that wonderful presentation. Zainab's enthusiasm palpable. I do hope that she can one day visit Europe and the US, as she mentions in her little piece over there. So tell us, KDJ, how does iACT begin to work with these communities? How do you identify a country and how do you negotiate your presence in these refugee camps?
So all of the refugee camps and refugee sites are run by the United Nations. So we definitely work with UNHCR, which is the UN Refugee Agency, in order to access the camps. The first thing that we do is that we scout the location. So we conduct a needs assessment, which we recently did in Cameroon last June 2016. And we have a list of questions, but mostly we just listen. We listen to women, we interview primary school age children, girls especially, what the challenges are, what they're learning, do they go to school? That was a big finding in Cameroon on this trip, was that some of the refugee population from the Central African Republic, nobody in the refugee site was educated at all. And then others who came from the larger cities in Central African Republic, also known as CAR, they did have education, and so they very much put an emphasis on it. So we do the scouting first, and that includes looking at the power structures in the refugee camps and the refugee sites. Are there leadership positions for women? Do they have established programs? What are the needs and desires of the refugee population? How do women play into that? Gender equality is definitely one of iACT's founding principles, and in all of our programs we include gender equality. The next step is really setting up the program. So we go in, we partner directly with refugees in addition to partnering with another non-governmental organization, another NGO on the ground. iACT doesn't leave foreign staff on the ground, so we do as much as possible directly with the refugees. However, because we are sending funds, we do partner with an organization that's a registered NGO in each country. And then begins the learning process. Our curriculum is a foundational curriculum that was created with experts in early childhood education, trauma, mindfulness, and they provide, it's kind of like a skeleton. And then we work with the refugee women that we hire as teachers to infuse their own cultural activities, their own cultural identity, their traditions, their songs, into the curriculum itself. So from that process, they have 3 training sessions with us, and then they're considered completely trained. And then they have a 30-unit lesson plan, which is the Lead with Empathy curriculum, which is being developed through you guys. And after that, they're considered fully trained. And the expansion is then done by those first set of teachers that we hire. And iACT provides the ongoing support. We check in, we provide monitoring and evaluation, but all of the program expansion and management is by the refugees themselves.
Okay, so since you have worked in so many refugee communities, can you describe this refugee camp in particular and maybe address the physical environment of most other refugee camps? I mean, there are seasonal weather issues that everybody has to take into consideration.
Yeah, so Refugee Camp Gozamer, where you ladies are funding the Lead with Empathy curriculum, you're paying for the teacher salaries and the cook salaries, also neighboring women, is in the Sahel region of Northern Africa. It's very dry. The rainy season runs from about mid-June to mid-October. During that period, the camp, many of the families leave the camp and they go to agricultural plots that they rent from local Chadians. This season, unfortunately, was a very dry season. They did not get a lot of rain. So many families came back early. So our preschool year started a little bit early. So the beginning and ending of the preschool sort of is how our school system was set up way back when, which was based on the agricultural harvesting as well in the United States. And so it's similar to the refugee camp. There's 30,000 refugees who live in Refugee Camp Gozamer. There's about 3,500 children ages 3 to 5 that we're expanding out to slowly. The Darfuri population is made up of about 52 tribes. And this particular camp, Refugee Camp Gozamer, has 12 major tribes in it, and then it has a few speckling of other tribes. But that's one of the reasons why the refugees asked for a preschool program, was that in primary school, level 1 or grade 1, as we might refer to it, teachers were trying to teach a curriculum in Arabic, which is the common language between the tribes, and the kids didn't know Arabic yet. So it's a little bit like using preschool to teach the foundations of English here in the United States. And so we teach Arabic in the preschools, but then they also learn about the different cultures and the different traditions of the different tribes inside of the camp. So the camp is a little bit desert-like. You can see here the tree that they've harvested for firewood in the camp. Many of the women do leave the camp for firewood. It takes about 6 hours to collect it. Another need for the preschool was that the primary school age girls were having to stay at home during that period to watch the younger siblings. Now that there's a preschool, those girls can attend primary school. So it's another indirect impact of the Little Ripples preschool program.
Mm-hmm. So, KDJ, there's so much research that says food and nutrition at this time is so important for preschoolers. There is brain development. And so this education project seems so timely and so important and so wonderful for the families to at least have a sense of place and have a sense of some hope for the future. But as we are talking about the smaller micro issues, can you address some of the macro issues? Will these refugees ever go home?
Yeah, and so unfortunately, many of the countries in Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa, like Sudan and Central African Republic, Cameroon, where we're all working, they're endemic to ongoing cycles of violence. One of the main issues is that the humanitarian aid world, when an emergency breaks out, we really focus on basic necessities, which are essential. So food, shelter, water, clothing, dignity is one of those, and preschool and having a job is part of that dignity. But the humanitarian world and where we fail is that we don't provide long-term capacity development that actually breaks the cycle of violence. So the children and the teachers who are our teachers in our program, they were 13, 14, 15, 16 when the violence broke out inside of Darfur. So it's the only way that they know how to resolve conflict. So part of our program on a macro level is teaching them ways where they can shift conflict resolution to something more nonviolent and something more built on peace building. On a macro level, iACT also engages our own government and our own policymakers in making sure that early childhood development is an essential part of the emergency humanitarian response. So we are in touch with the Office of the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, who has worked and advocated for long-term prevention of atrocities and genocide. And so over the last couple of years of the President Obama's administration, she has been a friend of the program, and she has approached the United Nations saying early childhood education needs to be part of the humanitarian pie. It needs funding. Otherwise, we're losing that essential 0 to 5, that the essential growth and development that happens between 0 to 5 you can never make up that loss. So we do engage our policymakers to make sure that programs that break cycles of violence and build strong adults and strong contributing members of society get a little bit more attention than they're getting right now.
Mm-hmm. Katie J, thank you so much for joining me in this Google Hangout. Thank you for presenting to the Dining for Women members this wonderful, compelling story of your organization. The entire Dining for Women family joins me in wishing you the very best for this project. And we hope for a season and a whole year and years to come of peace. So good luck and best wishes.
Thank you, everyone.